So, okay. This was my discussion question for people recently. I've been getting some entertaining answers. So, imagine that you are just like interacting with a guy, you don't view him in any kind of particular sexual way, but then there is one thing that he does, and he does it well, like one activity, one sport, and when he does it, then suddenly he is catapulted to, this man is very sexual and I'm very attracted to him in your eyes.
Well, this is tricky because now I'm also trying to think about like what could a guy do on the fly that I would witness him seeing that. And it's probably, and this is going to sound funny, but it's not even playing soccer.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a realistic scenario. It could be like him like performing maintenance on the space station or something. Like, I don't want to limit you here to whatever genres of smut you're reading.
It's when a guy can like volley the soccer ball with his feet in a way that shows that he's extremely comfortable with it and he absolutely knows what he's doing. I always thought that was hot, and there's just something about the way they do it, they play around with it, all that. But that's hot. Because the thing is that I also think that like hockey's hot, but you don't casually see a person playing hockey.
I think that can still count. I didn't say that it had to occur under casual circumstances. Like perhaps you followed him to his hockey game.
Yeah, I stalked and I sat there during the practice. No, if you've ever seen, I think you have Jenny Malkin on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and actually I looked him up recently, and he has really grown into his features, and he has a really hot wife. But when he was like 20, 21, he was objectively like nobody would see him on the streets and be like, that guy is so hot. But the way that he played was so powerful and so strong that I'd be like, man, I want Malkin so badly. And this is like my 16-year-old self, like slightly.
So, I mean, I think thousands of women would agree with you on that one because there's this whole genre of hockey romance, and we can get into this later, but hockey and men making men sexy.
The glow of the ice, and they're fast, and they're all bigger with their paw.
And this is a point because I think that if you were just looking at pictures of athletes, hockey players are not always the most attractive bunch. I mean, obviously there are exceptions. Versus something like, I think there are
Sidney
a lot
Crosby is going to come in and have to disagree with you.
Sorry. I am rudely generalizing. But I'm just saying, like, I think baseball players are another one in there, that there are some really hot baseball players, but it's not just, if you were just to show me a bunch of pictures, and I know because my husband likes to play this game with me, like if he's deciding on a fantasy draft or something, me knowing nothing about these sports, he'll just kind of say like, oh, okay, like, would you choose player A or player B? And he knows I will choose on hotness alone. So I think there are sports, and hockey is one of them, where they're not necessarily the most attractive bunch, but they do look hot when they're playing. Versus like soccer, they look hot while they're playing, and I think that soccer players are just, maybe this is just from my time living in South America, but I think that the soccer players are just objectively hot people also.
So I was at a Major League Baseball game over the weekend, and I was thinking about sports and sexuality and also just like gender differences and all that, because I realized that the other week I was telling you that a guy in tight pants, and one of like a book says like this guy was wearing tight leggings while practicing with swords. I'm like, who wants somebody in tight leggings? And then I was sitting there, and I was watching the baseball players warm up.
Oh, the pants
on
the
like,
baseball
man,
players.
Their legs look so nice. And then I also realized, like, I'm now mid-30s, and our team has a lot of rookies, so I'm looking at guys in their younger 20s, and I'm thinking, like, your behind looks really nice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if a guy was doing this to someone like over a decade younger than him and being like, man, she looks nice, I'd be like, you're a creep. Stop talking about younger people. Why are you
objectifying this powerful athlete? I don't know. I think that to balance the long-term scales of power, we should definitely spend more time objectifying men in baseball pants.
I was objectifying during warm-ups. I pondered about it. I had some guilt.
Only during warm-ups. By the game, you were fully engaged in the athleticism.
I was distracted with my kids, but yeah.
They don't need to know the details of why you were distracted. I think my answer is going to derail your. No, that was my husband's answer, and I just want to clarify that he was answering on behalf of what he thought that the answer would be for a woman. It wasn't like his answer about female athletes. It was his answer of what he thinks that a woman would be attracted to in men. And it was gymnasts.
Have you talked to a woman before? Yeah.
Well, I mean, on the other hand, though, I'm like, again, this is like our whole like gender norms kind of thing, because actually, if you watch male gymnasts, I mean,
They're ripped.
It does play into they do wear leggings, sort of. They wear like uni-suits, but they're wearing very tight clothing.
It's kind of worse than leggings because
it's worse than leggings. But they are, but yeah, it's like, why are we not attracted to the male gymnasts? Like the pommel horse, very sexual. They're
Brody's
very muscular.
Attractive. Brody, who was like in the last USA gymnastics, I would say.
Was that the glasses Rubik's Cube guy? That was the only one I knew
No,
about.
come on. That was not. He was. I mean, like a phenomenon, and we all loved him because of the same reason why women love men like that. They like we all love like the quirky people. And all that,
I mean, sometimes I do like the quirky people. No,
Brody
so
was objectively attractive.
My answer, quirky people, this will derail your thesis a little bit, is not a sport. And my first
This is not surprising at all.
I know. This is why, and we're going to get into this episode. I'm finally catching up on reading some of the like current romantasy that everybody is reading. And I do not think that my tastes are, I don't want to be like one of those people who's like, I'm such a hipster, I'm not mainstream, but not doing it for me. So mine is, and this comes from personal experience.
She does not think that Xaden Riorson is hot, and if you're any woman who has come anywhere near Fourth Wing, you know that you want Xaden Riorson just to rip you apart. So.
Well, on your point about looking at the baseball players, he's 23, like he's a baby, and then they're like, oh, he's like this smoldering man with complicated issues. I'm like, no, he's an emotional baby who like can't express any of his feelings or like have a conversation, and then
he's secretive.
Yeah, and then he's 23. I'm like, give me a real man. But anyway, we will get back to that so that you can hear my answer, which is I had this, and this is how I know, is that I had this cello teacher in college, and he was a very average looking person at best.
I tried to get you to read a cello romantic book, and I know that you did.
I will go back. Well, now I'm catching up on all the reading, so I will go read this. But he was just like very, like kind of gawky and a little bit nerdy looking. He had an accent, but it was a German accent, so it was kind of like he was just not somebody that you would look at him and be like, But then this man would play the cello, and this is not just me. This is every woman who ever saw him play the cello, because most of the music majors and minors that played cello were women. And he would start playing the cello, and it was extremely sexual. And everybody was like, all right, that guy fucks.
I feel like I need to watch that guy play the cello.
I need to find a video of him.
I read a book where like the main guy character played the cello, and he was very much so meant to be like extremely sexy and like totally in control of the cello. And this drove me to YouTube to look up guys playing the cello, and I was like, it's a string instrument. It's just not doing it for me.
What about the beatboxing cellist? Have you ever seen him?
No, but that sounds like
it's super dorky. But I'm just saying, no, he is actually like an objectively attractive man, and he is like very in control of the instrument. I'm not saying that he'll do it for you, but I am just saying I don't know. Like a lot of the cellists that come to mind are like not like Yo-Yo Ma, not objectively
I should have known
hot.
that you were gonna say something like that. That's why your husband. That's why your husband thought that like the gymnast would be. And I'm not insulting gymnasts at large. There are a lot of individual gymnasts, but I would say that most women, if you were gonna give a general answer, they're gonna say things more like
hockey.
Yeah, football, hockey, like these.
I don't think we would say football.
Things.
I think men would say football. Men who like are like, oh, if you could really get them to answer a question and like remove their homophobia from the equation.
I think that any woman from New England who grew up with like Tom Brady as a star. I don't know. No,
I don't know.
Not a Tom.
He looks so Botoxy. I don't know.
Rewind
to our Botox
Jay
episode.
Cutler,
I'm not saying there are some attractive football players. I'm just saying football doesn't have, for me, the like multiplicative element of when a guy is doing it well that he suddenly catapults a lot higher. Like certainly anything where a man is athletic and handling himself well moves him up. And certainly there are just football players who are hot men, but for me, it's like not the quite level. But I mean, I would agree more about hockey, I think, and soccer.
So I always like to find a paper that kind of goes with what we see. And there's a paper by Harding in 2021, looked at 70 young British people, 33 young men, 37 young women. And what they found is that young men really manipulated and managed their sporting identities. Like they were very, very mindful of the way that sports and bodies were socially valued and rewarded. And one quote from it, and just stay with me till the end because I think that this gets good. Greg says, people tend to say that you're good at football, you're quite popular because it makes you stand out. I was going to do this in a British accent, but I felt like that would be painful for everybody.
It depends what your British accent is. Test it out. I will let you know.
It's something that everyone thinks is cool. Instead of being like good at dance, but people say football, and remember that football is soccer here, is like the male thing. So people are like, oh yeah, he must be hard because of that. Interviewer, does sport come into being popular for girls? Greg, I think no. It's more about looks for girls. If they want to be popular, then they're stuck in having to look a certain way. And then they ask Leah about Greg, and it talks about how Greg actually also does dance, but then does football as a way to even it out and balance so that he's still socially acceptable. So I thought that was kind of, again, this is like a recent paper, and it shows, and I know I came from a very high school that fit all the norms, and the football guys were definitely cool, the cheerleaders were the hottest, all that, so yeah, this fits for me. And you see those same elements kind of playing over to romantasy, my favorite area, where the guys are always, extremely
romance in general.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And in romance novels, I mean, a whole series on different people on a football team, different people on a hockey team, baseball team.
Romance.
Yeah.
Hockey romance. That's what I'm saying. Like, I keep, stumbling across it when I'm just, on the Libby app, and I'm like, what should I read next? What titles are available right now? And, what's the other one besides Libby? Hoopla has a lot of, people who churn out romance novels, kind of romance, and there is definitely a lot of hockey romance that is coming across my feed, so I'll maybe read one. And
so Megan Quinn had a series on hockey players that were all within one team, and all their individual romance stories. It was one series within the same world. And what I loved about it, and Megan Quinn, again, I love you. I keep on reading you. But, one of them had a pierced penis. One of them had a tattooed penis. I'm like, come on. This is not, the prevalence of this in
Men
the world.
Who have played on hockey teams, please comment on the prevalence of pierced penises.
And tattoos.
Yeah,
and all of them had,
sure.
a door of, vibrators for the women. And I'm like, the amount of single men who would have a door full of vibrators to please the women visitors to their house. There's no way that it's this prevalent. But every single book, it'd be
I'd want to BYO my own vibrator anyway. I don't want it from this filthy hockey player's drawer of used vibrators. Having smelled the men's locker room, I do not trust this hockey player to have properly cleaned and sanitized his communal vibrators.
That's even what I thought about with the piercing. It's how do we? Who's
how are you keeping
this
clean?
I don't trust you. Oh my gosh, have you ever smelled hockey equipment? You're smelling their hockey gloves, which literally the worst smell in the world. Even my 5-year-old, his hockey glove just smells so bad. Sorry to talk about my 5-year-old in the middle of this conversation. But now you're thinking about they're communal vibrators, and you're just yeah. So anyways, sports, a big thing, and that brings us
sidebar
to, in my opinion, one of the hottest romantasy characters ever created by Rebecca Yarros in Fourth Wing, and why Fourth Wing is such a big deal, Xaden Riorson, who I don't think that there would be any plot spoilers because I don't think that's the pace that SJ reads romantasy that she doesn't want to read at, but you don't think he's hot.
Okay, so I wouldn't say that I don't think that he's hot. He sounds physically hot, but I would not be attracted to him beyond, there are a lot of people that I look at and I'm like, that person is hot. I was watching Love Island the other day. There are a lot of men on that show that I'm like, that man is hot. I would not get into a relationship with any of them. If I was in a place in my life where I was having one night stands, then sure.
Yes, I suppose that is probably fair. It's something about how I almost feel about like lacrosse players during college, where I thought that they were extremely attractive and cool, but I was not interested in them myself. But I think that part of that was that I just didn't really see a world where like they would ever be super interested in me either. It's almost like a
it's like Love Island. If I was somehow thrown onto Love Island, I also recognize that none of those men would be trying to pair up with me either. So I feel like it's just sort of, we're just operating in different spheres of like, they're in like a hotter imaginary character land, and I'm more in like normal people land, where the qualities that I'm looking for I realize don't make for a good romance novel. Or I would be into, I know that there are like the different tropes.
There is a cello player, and I reread that book a few times.
There's the romance stuff. I feel like it's not the epic romantasy type of stuff, but I realize that there's like whole romance genres that are like the friends to lovers trope. And I think that I find those more relatable because that sounds more like my current relationship. And I have a lot of friends that if you like read the various constructs for the friends to lovers or like those types of ones, that they're more like small town, not like Hallmark movie, but you know, like something like,
enemies to lovers is hot.
Enemies to lovers is hot, but I don't relate to it at all, because who do you know? I mean, I know a lot of like, okay, so eliminate all the online dating people, because that doesn't play into romantasy, but like of all the other like tropes of how they start the relationship, I know plenty of people who are the friends to lovers. I do not know anybody who were enemies to lovers. And if I think at various points in my life, like the men that I've been like, this man, I hate this man, under zero circumstances have I ever been like, I hate him, but I would totally fuck him.
Maybe because you were just not single at the time. Maybe it eventually would have gone there, and then you would have had like extremely hot sex with them.
Maybe not. I did not respect. I hated them because I did not respect them. Like if I hated somebody, it's because I thought that they were like sleazy, or you know, there was something that I deeply did not respect about them. I mean, there's plenty of people that I just felt ambivalent about, but it's not ambivalent to lovers. It's enemies to lovers.
I guess, so in my 20s, I was in the hospital environment. You know, there's physicians, you're like there all the time. Everybody's on short sleep. There's super high stakes, all that.
This is much closer to the setup to Fourth Wing than my life ever was.
So go on. A lot of sex in your 20s.
A lot of sex, a lot of danger, a lot of high stakes.
Actually, I was thinking about that with the gymnast thing that your husband suggested, because there was this one physician who was a college gymnast who also cheated on his fiance frequently with different people in the house system, and it was always like, oh, just go do flips off the pommel horse, like I don't know, like we see you for who you are. And I think also, I'm going to say this, I think it's a reason why romantasy sometimes works so well for different women, because there are some situations that, like you said, if you're enemies with a guy, it's for a specific reason, but romantasy can create these insane.
And I get the whole thing
scenarios.
in Fourth Wing that it's like, you could tell from the beginning that it's like, oh, there's like, he had something to do with this like uprising, and it's like very obvious that like you don't know all the details, and probably like there's things that she doesn't know about, and then the reason that she hates him will turn out to be like flipped on its head. So I guess in that case, and I think like it was partially that I don't just get as excited. I mean, it was still like a fun book to read. It is also just the like smoldering bad boy thing with all the I'm just like
secretive, sultry.
It
is very much so.
I love a man who can talk about his emotions, who can be mature. I realize that this is not a good setup to like a romance book, because there always has to be that thing where it's like, I'm attracted to you and you're attracted to me, but there is this reason with a capital R that we cannot be together, and then we'll have one night of passionate sex, and then we'll have to have some reason where there's several chapters where we don't have sex, because otherwise this would just be...
You probably haven't gotten into the sex that involves shadows yet.
Oh, I've read the whole book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm a fast reader. Yeah.
Isn't it weird that shadows can hold weight in that book?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was kind of fun, or like her whole like orgasms and lightning thing. I thought that like added a fun supernatural element to it, because one of my friends in my book club who is a very big fantasy reader, but like the like fantasy genre, read it, and she was like, a lot of people's feedback in her fantasy book club that she's in was kind of like, it's like the romantasy stuff, like some of the series like this one are like fantasy for people who don't normally read the genre, and for people who like read the genre a lot, they're like, some of the world building was like meh, and the character development, whatever.
Well, and I didn't know that shadows could wield weight, but then I asked my sister, and this was early on into my romantasy reading, and she's like, oh, once you get into romantasy, like, this is not your first shadow wielder, this is not your first like mind sharing. It happens all the time, and it is common lore that for whatever reason shadows.
I did think the mind sharing thing like that made it kind of hot. I thought that their whole like, that they were bringing their magical powers into sex, because I have definitely read fantasy before that like had a romantic element in it. So like some of it is more sexually explicit, some of it not. So I think some of it would qualify technically as romantasy, but it's not part of like, I know the genre that you're reading. And then of course I have read just like regular romance books before, so I thought it was like kind of fun how they had the various elements in there. And yeah, I felt like it was a little formulaic, but like so is a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, it was a quick read. It was very enjoyable.
Free on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, exactly. Free on Kindle Unlimited. And I enjoyed how quickly the time passed while I was reading it. And like some of the things, like I think I texted you right after I started because I like opened it to page 1.
I thought you were a little hard on the map.
And I was like, the map is just upside down Australia. How lazy is this?
George
and you're like,
Martin's is just Europe.
Yeah. And you were like, I just want to point out that I do not think anybody is reading these books for the quality of the map writing. So, yeah, I mean, I think I can enjoy it without being like, oh, like I would fuck this guy. But at the end of the day, one of my friends who had read it, she was also like, yeah, I'm just not like a huge Xaden fan. She was like, you know, because I was like, I read it and I was just like,
I don't want to marry him. I just want to.
I'm just saying he didn't
have
like
an affair with him.
He didn't
it's
like.
Different.
Yeah, fair. But I'm saying like just his whole aesthetic. This is basically, she just boiled it down to, she's like, yeah, Xaden wears skinny jeans. She's like, I'm like, oh, they haven't really gotten into describing his clothes yet. And she's like, no, I'm not. He doesn't like. I mean, he wears leather pants a lot, so I guess he basically. I
can't envision the leather pants at all.
Yeah, I'm just like, I know I saw when I was pulling it up that they were like, oh, being made into an Amazon series soon. And I'm like, this will be a very interesting work for the costume director to not make him look like he's like the bad boy character in a Broadway musical where he's like prancing around in his little leather leggings, you know, to like make him look badass, but to also sort of fulfill this like description that we have of this man who's just like prancing around in leather all the time. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that they will do it well because I trust. And Michael B. Jordan's production company is doing it. So I was like, okay.
Good, because Xaden is supposed to be cool. Awesome. So just to give you an idea of why Xaden, if you read romantasy, might be hotter, I found a nice description for you from Katie Wilde. And I do like Katie Wilde, but this is from the Stoneheart Bride. So this is from here. He goes, and ready he made her, wet, so slippery, she believed her body could offer no resistance. But her barbarian, and he is in fact an actual barbarian,
yes,
was big indeed. Big enough to make her cry out as his cock began a slow penetration, but it was his gentleness that made her scream as his thickness stretched her narrow sheath. And just some background on Katie Wilde, she tends to write, I really appreciate her, but she tends to write in a very much so like somebody from the 1600s was writing like the dirtiest barbarian smut you've ever read.
I mean, I appreciate when they do try to like give an aura of like it's kind of old-timey, if that's like their world has kind of like old-timey vibes, but it also makes me giggle.
Her guys always have like no clothes besides like a small little like leather loincloth, and I like her story building enough that I go with it, but I'm like, he can just wear pants and a shirt. Like, I don't really need like the leather loincloth.
That just sounds uncomfortable for a lot of these athletic activities to not have any kind of like support or protection around there. But yeah.
And before we left this topic, I wanted to ask you, speaking of men in history and literature, who is your hottest biblical character?
Oh no.
Jesus is off the table. We don't have to, I don't want to
Yeah, we don't want, I mean, although I do have to say that a lot of the portrayals of Jesus, I'm like, or there's always jokes about like the modern praise band music, that they were like, if you just like took out Jesus and put in my boyfriend, that a lot of the music would really work. That we like joke that there's the Jesus my boyfriend music, because there's just a lot of like, you're amazing, you're wonderful, you are the best, you know. I don't know, it's just like, it sounds like a teenager like writing a song about their boyfriend, like if you just took out all the Jesus stuff. So there are definitely some people who, and some of that Jesus art, you know, people like, he has this like really ripped six pack, and I'm sure, like, you know, he was an active person, he was probably, but some of those Jesuses, I'm like, there is a person here who has like a bit of a Jesus fetish to be creating that art.
He was going to like the CrossFit. That was
CrossFit Jesus is definitely a thing. We should talk more about this. Yeah, or I mean, then we could also have questions about like, why are there so many blonde, blue-eyed Jesuses? But that's a whole separate topic. I don't feel like I have one.
You're not even gonna give me David.
Oh, okay, good point, David. I'm gonna take that one. Yeah, he's like musical. He's definitely kind of slutty.
I totally thought that you were going to pick David, and that's why I picked mine, but I'll wait until you.
Okay. No, that didn't occur to me. I think I was too distracted thinking of like, I was like, oh, well, this one, no.
Maybe you're just totally Jesus, and I took Jesus off the table for you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I do have a Jesus fetish, and I need to talk to somebody about it. Or, yeah, I just kept like, he was. That's what I kept picturing. I was picturing New Testament, and I feel like they're all like, Paul like wrote a lot of the New Testament, and he has like very weird baggage around sex, and basically just thought that the world was going to end, and that like sex was like, oh, well, you can, if you need to have sex, like if you can't control yourself, then you can get married, but it would be ideal if you could just like remain celibate. So I feel like there were a lot of people in the New Testament who just had decidedly asexual vibes, so it's not really a turn on. So I think we would mind the Old Testament more. And then, yeah, David's a pretty good answer.
So I want to give Samson a moment.
Okay. Yeah,
Samson definitely could be like a modern day romantasy hero. He's problematic. Mm-hmm. He's extremely muscular and big. He fits that like tree idea, and morally gray. So when
there's very easy sex scene tie-ins with all of his run-ins with trysts with Delilah.
Yes. So when his second wife was burned with her father, he killed 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. Ooh. If that doesn't scream romantasy hero, then you do not read romantasy.
Is he wearing a very scanty loincloth?
There is no way that he's not wearing like just like a little leather loincloth during all these activities. And yeah, so you know, Delilah, he had that tryst with her, and really she had just gotten silver coins. What I'm saying is that if he didn't die in the end, I actually think that he would be a great starter for like a modern day romance book where all of a sudden you would see a lot of like Samson fan art and all these different things because he fits all the criteria.
I could definitely see the setup for a romantasy where you kind of like take that story and then like world build around it like a sort of old Hebrew adjacent.
I think he was giving Delilah a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Obviously.
She betrayed him, but still, probably giving a good time. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about how women are described differently just across the board, from romantasy to Bible to romance novels to movies to books to TV shows, literally everything about how women are like
people
sexually
talking
described.
about, and to just like how people talk about their like kids and stuff too, of like how they'll describe things differently or something. I mean, obviously like less in a sexual context, but still that like physical aspect of them.
Yes, it's a totally different set of expectations. And like for women, what I like is that there's a lot about how like we're supposed to be like soft, but then we can't be too soft.
Yeah.
Like it's men who are supposed to be hard and muscular, and women who are supposed to be soft, but we're supposed to be soft while also being like very
spunky,
slim and small. Yes.
Oh yeah. And I feel like also now with the modern ones, it's like, and maybe like with more historical things, it was just much more of like, oh, the man is this like big strong man that rescues the woman, and then the woman is just like the damsel in distress. And now it's sometimes like the double weight of like where we are on one hand like more that we're like, oh, girls can be strong too, but then it's like, so now she has to be like small and slim and beautiful but also strong and spunky, and like she can't overpower him, but she also can't just
but she's not better than the guys.
Yeah, she can't get rescued by him. And I actually thought that was like a very interesting, in like this just being the most recent example of having read Fourth Wing, and that on one hand they had like the women are equal participants in this like military scenario, and there are a lot of women who are like like Imogen is the one who's like training her on the mat and things like that. Her Rhiannon, is that her roommate's name? Or like her bestie is also like training her about things, but then it's like the main character herself, like that's her whole thing, is she's like so tiny and like delicate
and breakable. Yes, and granted she has a disability, she has like the connective tissue disorder that the author had, but it was given to the woman. That none of the men who were in that area had an issue that was similar.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so then, and like a lot of books, like on one hand, I thought it was kind of nice that they didn't then like cast her into the role that a lot of times there's like the man is the warrior in this military kind of scenario, and then like she's the healer and she's the peacemaker. So I did like that Rebecca Yarros like still made her be like that, she has like this deadly power and things like that. And I think like it is totally cool to talk about. I didn't realize that she has Ehlers-Danlos.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that she herself had it. That's very interesting. But so yeah, I don't know. I thought that it was like on one hand it's good, and I've seen other examples of books like this, especially I think in romantasy, where there's much more of like a setup for there to be a damsel in distress, where the women aren't damsels in distress anymore. But on the other hand, you don't see as much where it is just like the woman is like taller than the man, or that she just is like straight up.
Literally the only time I've seen it is Emily Henry. That is the only time I've seen it where the woman is the same height as the lead main character.
Yeah, and I feel like she does a little bit like quirkier characters sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So something tying back to that quote that talked about the barbarian lover from Katie Wilde. And sorry, Katie Wilde, but this is just like the main example. I have other authors do this. Her books just do it the most, or maybe because she writes short stories, I've read them the most. But very often describes the guy going down on the girl and being like, her sweet nectar, her honey. I couldn't get enough of her nectar and her honey. And I want to put out there that if like any woman who's a virgin or in their 20s is reading this, that your stuff might not taste like honey. Like that's totally not a right expectation. And I was thinking about this in a comedy show that I had seen when I was like 20 or so in Chicago at Second City. The Second City that's in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And the guys were talking about what it's like to go down on a girl. And someone was like, it's like making out with a basset hound. And someone's like, it's like having a mouthful of nickels. And then another one said, like licking a 9-volt battery. And I was thinking on the other hand, like that was what I went into like my life thinking what was like. And that was like, oh my God, I don't want you to have your mouthful of nickels. Like, please
yeah, and that's how I think they end up like selling all these like flavored douches and things like that do like terrible things to your like body chemistry, because you have women grow up. And I think that was very, again, like with most of my sex ed coming from Cosmo, 90s, 2000s Cosmo had a lot about your natural state down there is like a disgusting fish taco, and so what are things that you can do?
Guys are so great and nice to be down there.
And that you have to like apologize. But I also, I think that
it makes you go into it with this weird like, oh, I don't want you down there because I don't want you to have that. Or like, oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe we all should have just read Katie Wilde and just thought, like, please welcome yourself to my honey.
Enjoy this sweet nectar. Yeah, I mean, and I think that there are men that do enjoy, like, the natural flavor, and then there are men who don't, and there are women who enjoy receiving oral sex, and there are women who don't enjoy receiving oral sex.
I just wonder, it's completely fine if you don't enjoy it, but I do wonder how much of it is, like all those different things got so in your head that you're not able to like relax into. Yeah, I don't know.
Both. Because I was I was hanging out with two friends, both of whom do not enjoy receiving oral sex, which I was surprised about. But like, I would say that they are both very like not held down by, and I mean, I'm sure there's all these things on some level that maybe it's like influencing you and you don't even know, but I would say that they're both like very sexually comfortable kinds of people.
Yeah.
So I think it could be both either.
I was reading about the orgasm gap. I wasn't planning on bringing this up today, but
I think the orgasm gap always comes in.
So heavy. Yeah, it's almost like it's like a central little, maybe not central, but it's like a side theme of the show. That part of this is like some hope that among our 16 followers, we might like help somebody be like, oh, it is okay to want this, and we should have this, and it is completely realistic for women to have an orgasm every time that we have sex. Yeah, not with penetration, but other ways.
Yeah.
And about 1/5 of women reported that they rarely, if ever, orgasmed with a partner, and that's, I don't know, it's kind of a lot. 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Claim. So we still have a lot of work to do to close it, and not that nobody who especially if they're finding other ways to get their enjoyment and all that. I'm not saying that like going down is the answer, but I am wondering if like those types of things, and again, like that's kind of where to me romanticy helps, where even though it gives you an unrealistic expectation of like what you're like, it does change this lens to being like, oh,
refocusing it on female pleasure. Like I feel like in the sex scenes in romance books, there is almost always like the woman she comes first.
Yes.
Like the book.
3 times. Yeah.
Yeah, that it is. I mean, I am a little just like impressed by the like rapid fire series of orgasms that people can have. But again, towards like setting high expectations for something that is very focused on female pleasure. There's usually like 3 female orgasms before we even really get to men, versus like if you watch porn, and I'm thinking mostly male-centric porn because that's most of what's out there, like it is all contributing to and leading up to, I mean, obviously like the money shot is the end thing of it, but so much of it is focused on the male pleasure.
Cum shot. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to bring it together that there's like some shared pressure on both men and women. Men to be like this huge like fighting stallion, like whether like on the ice where they're like massive and fast on the soccer field, and this gigantic penis that's gonna stretch out the women and all that, and then on women that we're soft,
ram her in the
not
throat,
too soft, and
exactly. So I think it puts unrealistic expectations on both. Which is also, I mean, I think you can read and enjoy this stuff much in the same way, like you're saying. Like, you can enjoy reading about Xaden without being like, I think that he would be a wonderful father to my children. That's what's enjoyable about fantasy. And even romance that's not romantasy is still fantasy. And yeah, it's just these very, like, you're reading it for escapism from real life. And it doesn't have to be any kind of report out on what your actual tastes are. Because I think we've talked about that a lot of, like, you may really just enjoy, I mean, obviously a lot of people are enjoying these passages in the book with the guy that is like, his dick is too big to get your 2 hands around. And obviously that's
like we're enjoying the stuff around it. I'm always like, ugh.
But I mean, whoever's writing it, I mean, I think that there are people for whom you're like, ugh, yes. And maybe it's because that is also what you enjoy in real life. Or I think maybe that is just like part of this whole romantic, like, you can enjoy reading a book about this man who's emotionally unavailable, but she changes him, and like for her, his tough exterior cracks. And I definitely know some women who go for that in real life. It doesn't usually like work out great. But I also know a lot of women who are like, okay, I like to read that in a book. And in real life, they have a relationship with a man who is like much more in tune with his emotions and healthy and like less smoldering and less like something that Rebecca Yarros would write a book about, but like probably much more functional for day-to-day life. And that is nice, I think, when we're able to enjoy our little romantic flights of fantasy and they can offer something beneficial to our boring day-to-day lives, such as maybe removing some of your stigma about enjoying oral sex.
Yes. And a relevant update to end the episode is that my partner using Good Girl continues to not go well. I'm like, you need to pretend like you're someone else. Like, you need to put on like a different role, because when you're just being you, then all of a sudden you're like, I want you to do this different thing and turn around in bed. If you just add good girl onto it, that's not it. That's just not it. So anyways, we're going to continue to work in.
An example of a kink
transparently
that you
shared
can
with
have
him.
and enjoy in your literature that doesn't pan. Just like, I don't think that if either of our husbands started wearing leather pants and just, like going around wrestling other men, I don't know that that would really do anything for me, or I would just be like really confused and uncomfortable. So no need, gentlemen, to go out shopping for.
Yeah. All of a sudden, my husband starts wearing two swords on his sheaths on his back.
So for real, because like I knew a guy that was like, the guys that like study Japanese because they're like really obsessed with like anime or samurais, and this guy was like obsessed with samurai, and he like wanted to be a samurai. He was the least hot guy. So if we would talk about activities that catapult men into sexual icon status, I think walking around wearing swords strapped to your back in real life would be like a real demotion. That's a real quick pathway to ick. But Kay, one more thing to keep in, if we have time. You can edit this out. So we were talking about body image and body positivity, and like kind of all the talk about like keeping your, especially around like religious conversation, and like keeping your body the way God made you, or like where you draw that line about how much to change. And I was watching a TikTok video or something, but he was going around asking people which state has the highest rate of plastic surgery.
Florida?
That was everybody's answer.
California.
That was everybody's second answer.
New York. DC? I have no idea.
Utah.
What?
And then everybody in the comments was like, the people who are like, if you know, you know. They're like, if you live in Utah, they're like, and again, it's a very like religious, like Mormon thing, but it was so fascinating because it's like on one hand, there's all this like, oh, like keep your body the way that God made it. Like God made you beautiful. Your body is a temple. And yet in like some of the
those women are underneath so much pressure to look good.
But when you get into more like fundamentalist or evangelical religions, then there is this pressure. And we talked about it in that episode.
Ballerina
but I wanted to
farm, amazing woman, beautiful. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That then it's like this whole tie up of like, you should be more just like, oh, okay, like I was saying in that episode, like if you weren't born hot, then it's like, great, you just get to move on with your life and be something that doesn't require being hot. But no, there is just like this immense pressure, and around that like whole, when people are tied up in the ideals of like the Proverbs 31 woman, to like be generous, to be a good mom, but also to be like super hot and keep it tight and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, when I heard that, I just really wanted to
That's amazing
for you.
It's really interesting. I guess amazing would be the wrong word, but it's interesting, and I think once you say it, it's like, oh, it fits.
Yeah.
And it just
as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, yeah. And I didn't watch The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but this may be some summer binge watching that I go back and do.
You might learn about marinating, then you might want to do it because it sounds kind of hot. No,
yeah, I will come back from that. So I think future episode where we talk about that show. But that's it for now.
Thank you so much for listening.